My FIL called me charity case for marrying his son, so I exposed how I'd been funding their entire family for 3 years and sent his golden boy back to his parents' basement in garbage bags. When I married Alex 7 years ago, his father Richard made it clear I wasn't good enough. My past? I grew up in foster care after my parents died when I was 9, bounced between 12 homes, aged out at 18 with nothing but a garbage bag of clothes and a determination to never depend on anyone again. Richard loved reminding everyone his son was dating beneath him. At our wedding, he gave a speech about how love makes people do crazy things, how Alex had such a generous heart to see past my background. I was 24 with a nursing degree I'd earned working 3 jobs. Alex was 26, living in his parents' basement, trying to become a professional poker player. But I loved him and thought Richard would warm up once he knew me better. First year was fine. I worked 12-hour shifts at the hospital while Alex played online poker. Made decent money actually, enough that we got our own apartment. Richard would visit and comment how lucky I was to have found a man willing to overlook my upbringing, how most men from good families wouldn't take that risk. I'd bite my tongue and serve coffee while he lectured me about proper silverware placement. Then Alex's luck turned. Lost big in a tournament, tried to win it back, lost more. Within 6 months, he'd burned through his savings and maxed out credit cards. I took extra shifts to cover rent. Richard's response was that I should be supporting Alex anyway, since he'd elevated my social status by marrying me. The gambling got worse. Alex stopped even pretending to look for work, said poker was his career, just needed one big win. I was working 16-hour shifts, coming home to find him passed out on the couch surrounded by beer cans and chip bags. Richard would come over, step over the mess, and tell me I wasn't keeping house properly, that his son deserved better than coming home to a dirty apartment, even though Alex hadn't left the apartment in weeks. For 3 years, I carried everything. Every bill, every grocery run, every responsibility while Alex sat on that couch playing poker on his phone. I'd get home from back-to-back shifts to find Richard there, criticizing my cooking, saying his son sacrificed so much marrying someone with no family, no background, no class. He'd say this while Alex nodded along, mouthful of food I'd bought with money I'd earned. Last Christmas was the breaking point. We were at Richard's house, his whole family there. Richard stood up to make a toast, started talking about sacrifice, about charity, about helping those less fortunate. Then he looked right at me and said Alex was basically a saint for taking in a foster kid with no real family, giving me the stability I'd never had, that I should spend every day grateful someone from a good family chose me despite my past. His relatives all smiled and nodded like he'd said something beautiful. Alex just kept eating his turkey. I stood up, still in my scrubs because I'd worked that morning, and finally said everything. How I'd paid every single bill for 3 years. How Alex hadn't worked a day since 2021. How I'd covered his gambling debts, his car payment, his health insurance. How this foster kid with no family had somehow managed to support his entire family while being told I was the charity case. Richard's face went red. He started yelling about disrespect. How I didn't understand family values because I'd never had one. That's when I pulled out my phone and showed everyone my bank statements. 3 years of deposits, only my name. Every payment for their house bills when they fell behind. The loan I gave Richard last year that he'd told everyone came from Alex. The room went silent. Richard's wife Helen, who'd always been cold to me, stared at her husband like she was seeing him for the first time. I turned to Alex and told him to pack his things. He could move back to his parents' basement since they thought he was such a prize. Richard started screaming that I couldn't kick out his son from his own home. I reminded him the apartment was in my name only, had been from the start because Alex's credit was destroyed. I left that dinner and went straight home, packed Alex's stuff in those same garbage bags I'd once carried my life in. When Alex showed up with Richard, demanding to be let in, I handed them the bags through the door. Richard kept yelling about how ungrateful I was, how I'd be nothing without his son. Last week, Helen called me, said she's divorcing Richard after finding out about other lies he's been telling her that made her so cold to me. Full story on channel, link below.